Today we're going on a trip to explore the famous secrets of the Rosetta Stone. And if you think we're going to Egypt, think again. We're actually going to England, and more specifically in the British Museum, where the Rosetta Stone is on display since 1802, with a small break that we're going to talk about a bit later. So what do you say, dear viewers? Are you ready to learn about something superbly exciting and amazing and quite mysterious? Well, let's go. Let's start with what the Rosetta Stone is exactly. No, this isn't a language commercial, but yes, it's a stone. You got that right, and we're clapping for you. But let's learn a bit more, shall we? The Rosetta Stone is actually a broken part of a stone slab, and they estimate it was around 2 meters high and contained inscriptions. The black rock it's made of is called granodiorite, and its back side is quite rough, while the front side that has the text is smooth. Are we good so far? Excellent. Now that you know what it is, why are we talking about it? Well, let's start with this part, with where the Rosetta Stone was found and when. Want to take a guess as to where? If your answer was Rosetta, then we're clapping again for you. Where Rosetta is, if you even knew a little bit about its history, should be quite easy to guess as well, as there shall be no more clapping from now on. Well, maybe a little bit, but that's later. We'll see. But Rosetta was modern-day Rashid in Egypt. Now, if you're wondering how this little, well, not so little stone traveled all the way from Egypt to England, you're in for a trip down history lane. It all started with Napoleon. Wait, really? Napoleon? What does he have to do with Egypt and England and a mysterious stone? Hang on, dear viewers, and all will be explained. The Little Corporal's 1798 campaign in Egypt started a bit of a frenzy in France with everything that had to do with the mysteries of the country and the magnificent pyramids. So it was then that a corps of about 150 technical experts were named Commission des Sciences et des Arts, and they were told to accompany the expeditionary army to Egypt. Now, about a year later, close to the port city of Rosetta, Lieutenant Pierre-Francois Bouchard saw that the soldiers had uncovered this weird slab that had inscriptions on one side. Understanding it might be something big, he informs General Jacques-Francois Menu, and the discovery was announced to Bonaparte's scientific association in Cairo, the Institut l'Egypte, where it was already called La Pierre de Rosette, and it was being transferred to be examined by the team and, of course, by Napoleon Bonaparte himself. How did it end up in England? Well, after the Little Corporal's defeat, and under the Treaty of Alexandria, the Rosetta Stone, along with a lot of other antiquities, traveled to Portsmouth in February 1802. It was then presented to King George III, who immediately ordered it to be put in the British Museum. Now, we've taken a small break from this fascinating history to remind you that if you like the video so far, hey, definitely pay a visit to the channel once you finish watching this one, because we have many amazing top 10s and informative videos just like this waiting for you. And if you subscribe and leave a comment that says, "I subscribed," I'll personally reply to your comment. Ready to continue? We bet you are. Okay, so far we've learned what the Rosetta Stone is, where it came from, and when. But let's move on to the important part. Why is it, well, important? The clue is written in stone, literally. You see, the Rosetta Stone had text carved into it, not one, but two, but in 3 different languages: Greek, Demotic, and Hieroglyphics. And here's the clue as to why it's so important. Up until then, hieroglyphics were just some weird-looking language that people knew that they didn't know about. But when they realized that actually all 3 languages were saying the same thing, suddenly deciphering Egyptian scripts became a possibility. The Greek text was where they started. Since many scholars could still read ancient Greek, providing a translation for the Greek part of the text was something relatively easy. Why relatively? Because, as it turned out, the scholars were not exactly familiar with the terms used in the Hellenistic period in the Ptolemaic Egypt. To give you an example, it's like suddenly finding law or medical papers with terminology in a language that you kind of know. Not a very easy task. But in April 1802, a man named Stephen Weston presented an English translation of the Greek text, at least verbally, at a meeting of the Society of Antiquaries. He wasn't the only one working on it, though. In France, a copy of the text was being translated as well. Although under the orders of Napoleon, it kept changing hands. In 1803, Hubert Pascal Amiens had translated the Greek both in French and Latin. Now, what about the Demotic text? Well, Demotic was a stage of the ancient Egyptian language, which is technically the hieroglyphics, but written in cursive. You know, we can think of emojis here, that we have use of those today, and we wouldn't be too far off. So in that analogy, emojis are hieroglyphics, and Demotic is our native language. A Swedish scholar named Johann David Ackerblad was the one that took it upon himself to translate the Demotic text. After realizing it was the same as the Greek text, some previously unknown phrases were able to be translated. Now let's move on to the juicy part, how it all went down with the hieroglyphics text. Thomas Young and Jean-Francois Champollion got into a race as to who would be the first to decipher these hieroglyphics. Young was the first to understand and show that some of the hieroglyphics on the Rosetta Stone actually sounded like a royal name, the one of Ptolemy. But as luck would have it, Champollion won because he was able to confirm the hypothesis that the hieroglyphics indicated phonetic sounds. There's even legend that says upon realizing the key to deciphering this mysterious language, Champollion ran into his brother's office, screamed, "I've got it," and then immediately fainted and remained bedridden for over a week. After he recovered, he announced his discovery in a paper at the Académie des Inscriptions et les Belles Lettres. Sounds like to me he went to the post office, I'm not sure, but this was in Paris on September of 1822. They say that Thomas Young was also part of the audience, so it gets very juicy indeed. Now, before we reveal to you the final and most exciting part, which is what the text actually said, if you would not mind terribly, give a like to this video, then subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. You wouldn't now, would you? I mean, why, thank you so much. That's so nice. We're ready for the big revelation then. Let's go. Well, we're perfectly aware how unclimactic this revelation would be for you, and trust us, we felt exactly the same, and most probably the scholars of the day did too. As it turns out, the inscription on the Rosetta Stone is a decree passed by a council of priests. Technically, it affirms the royal cult of teenager pharaoh Ptolemy V on the first anniversary of his coronation, which was 196 BC. The text says that copies of this declaration were to be placed in every temple across Egypt in 3 languages as it was on the Rosetta Stone. The text actually begins by naming some of Ptolemy's accomplishments, such as like the granting of tax reductions and etc. The Council of Priests, as a gift to the pharaoh, pledges the construction of better statues, new decorations for shrines, big celebrations throughout the land for his birthday, and of the day of his accession to the throne. There may be no ancient wisdom or secret of life we hope to find in this deciphering of the Rosetta Stone, but what made it important then and continues to make it important today was that it was the key to finally start deciphering hieroglyphics and understanding ancient Egypt much better than we ever did in the past. We give you a little bit of the translated text to understand how well uninspired it was of itself with my butchered English. On the 24th day of the month, Gorpaios, which correspondeth with the 24th day of the 4th month of the season Pert, of the inhabitants of Tamert, Egypt, in the 23rd year of the reign of Horus Ray the child, who hath risen as king upon the throne of his father, the Lord of shrines of Nekhebit and Utachit, the mighty of one twofold strength, the stabilizer of the 2 lands, the beautifier of Egypt. You know, it does sound a little bit like Game of Thrones. I'm not the only one thinking that. You did too, I'm sure, but we must remember that the text itself was never the important part of the discovery of the Rosetta Stone. The understanding of hieroglyphics has become the real mysterious thing that was solved with the discovery of this amazing artifact. We'll finish today's video by saying that if you're ever in the British Museum, know that the Rosetta Stone is on display in room 4. And the break that we talked about in the beginning happened in 1917 during World War I, when there were fears that the British Museum was going to be bombed, so they moved the Rosetta Stone on the Postal Tube Railway at Holborn 50 feet below the ground, and it stayed there for 2 years, just to be sure. And then it returned to the British Museum, where it proudly stays today. Well, there you have it. This is the amazing story of the Rosetta Stone. And it's time to hear from you. Which part of the story did you find most amazing and why? Let us know in the comments. And if you haven't already, please go ahead and give the video the thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and don't forget, check out all the other videos we have because we're sure you'll find something you like. We'll see you next time.